last class on 16th, we have discussed about how to fetch data to SAP UI5, or it can be a theory by consuming OData ABAP service. So this is what we have already understood in the last class. Fetching data to SAP UI5 front-end application by consuming OData ABAP service. So that is what we have done in our last class. So that means, so this is our application which we are bringing the data to a table in SAP UI5. So let me refresh this screen. So here you can see this is the application which we have developed, and ultimately we are fetching our data to front end by consuming OData ABAP service. So this is a table, and this table is getting the data from OData ABAP service. So this is what we have done in our last class. So you can see that. So now what I want to do is I want to develop some more additional features on this SAP UI5 table. In the last class, we are able to fetch the data to a table in SAP UI5 by consuming OData ABAP service. But today, I want to add some more features to this SAP UI5 table. So if you closely observe this SAP UI5 table, so this is what we have done, and we are bringing the data to a table, and there is a airline ID column, airline column, airport from, airport to, city from, city to, etc., etc. You can use any service by following the last class procedure, and you can bring the data ultimately to table. But if you closely observe the last column, there is a price column here. There is a price column here, and it is trying to display some records with price less than 500, and some records are having price greater than 500. Some records are having a price less than 500, and some records are having a price greater than 500. So I want to utilize this price column to display different screen elements in a table by applying some conditions. So first let me explain our requirement here. First let me explain the requirement for today's class. If price is greater than equal to, for example, 500, I want to display some status. I want to display a new column status text as, for example, expensive. I want to display some status text as a new column with a value expensive. Else I want to display status text column with something like reasonable. So status column is not existing in our OData ABAP service, but in the front end, I want to generate this status with some text based on some condition. So not only status text column, I want to use, for example, I want to display an image. if price is greater than 500, I want to display something like image as, for example, green color image I want to display. Else if price is less than or equal to, if the price is less than 500, I want to display, for example, image with something like red color. And similarly, I want to use not only image column, I want to generate, for example, a checkbox column. So if price is greater than 500, I want to display checkbox with selection. Checkbox with status selected. Else if price is less than 500, I want to display, for example, checkbox with status as deselected. And then if price is greater than or equal to 500, I want to display, for example, rating indicator. I want to display some rating, for example, 2 star. If price is less than 500, I want to display some rating value as 4 star. Something like that. Not only rating, I want to display some progress indicator. I want to display progress indicator. If price greater than 500, I want to display progress indicator. Just for our understanding, I want to display progress indicator with, for example, 80%. If price is less than 500, I want to display some progress as, for example, 20%. So I want to display status text column, image column, checkbox column, rating column, progress column when this table is displayed. So we got this data by consuming OData service to the table. In the last class, I told you that procedure. Now, on top of this table, I want to generate some new columns in the front end by applying some conditions on price column in this example. So in this requirement, what we are trying to do? So we are going to display table with text view. We are going to display table with image column. We are going to display table with checkbox column. We are going to display table with some rating indicator. And we can display table with some progress indicator. And we are also going to use table with something like a button and table column with link, etc., etc. you can use. So table column with text view, table column with image, table column with checkbox, table column with rating indicator, table column with progress indicator, and table column with a button, and table column with hyperlink. So I want to utilize these different screen elements inside a table just by applying some if-else condition at table level. So how to do this? You can see I'm going to our code So we have created a table. In the last class also we have done the same thing. We have created a table with some airline ID, airline, airport from, airport to, city to, price. These are the columns of our OData ABAP service. So these are the fields of our OData service I've referred in my table in the front end, all these fields. City from, city to, then price, and as you know, this is the code for consuming OData ABAP service. In the last class, I've already explained how to consume OData ABAP service. And you can set the model to table. And you have to bind rows with entity set. You have to bind rows with entity set. In our case, the entity set is flight set here. In our case, the entity set is flight set, so that we are using here for bind rows method. And at last, you can display the table by placing at content. You can display the table by placing at content. So this is a procedure already we have understood in the last class on 16th. Now I want to use the same code. But I want to apply all these conditions and I want to display different table columns additionally. So first let me start with status text here. So what you need to do is first copy this column. Copy that column, price column, paste it here. Copy and just paste that column. And this column, I want to use it for displaying status text. I want to use it for displaying status. And you can see while displaying status, I want to use a screen element that is text view. I'm displaying status with screen element as text view. And we need to maintain binding. We need to maintain a binding with the text property. If you are using text view, you have to use text property for binding. If you are using text view, you have to use text property for binding. And I'm expecting price values. Apart from price values, I want to apply some condition. So that's the reason why you can put comma here and you can write your formatter function. You can just put comma here. After binding, just put comma here and apply formatter function. So you can use function, and for function what you can do is you can use some price value. You can use some variable price value and you can open flower brackets here, and within that you have to write some piece of code. You can use some price value, open the braces, flower brackets, and within that you can write some piece of code. So this is a formatter function which we are going to implement now. It is a formatter function which we are going to implement now, and formatter function should be applied when you want to apply some conditions at table column level. You have to use a formatter function at table column level if you want to apply some conditions. So let me write that note here. Formatter function Formatter function is used to apply conditions to display column values. Formatter function is to apply conditions to display the column values. That is the use of a formatter function. So we can apply conditions, we can apply some calculations, etc., for displaying the column values. So let me do that now. So this is a formatter function. Now what you can do is you can use a condition here. If price value is greater than, you can apply some condition. For example, if price value is greater than something like 500, greater than equal to 500, then what you can do is you can return some status as expensive. So that is our expectation here. Price greater than or equal to 500, display text as expensive. Else display status text as reasonable. So that's the reason why I'm using if-else condition here under formatter function, and we are returning reasonable if it is less than 500. So this is how you can apply formatter function while creating the column. So let us test it now. Let me refresh. And let us test it in the latest browser. And if you closely observe, we are able to get the last column status, and that status value is decided based on the price value here. And we are able to get that. If you closely observe, status column is created based on price value. If it is less than equal to 500, we got status as reasonable. If the price is greater than 500, we got status as expensive. So that is how you can display some text based on condition. Reasonable, expensive, this is the text we are applying at column level by using a formatter function with some condition. So we are able to succeed here. And let us go with something like image column here. If price is greater than 500, I want to display image with green color icon. Else, I want to display image with red color icon. So let us go with an image and let us try that coding part here. So what you can do is you can copy this column and add one more column here. You can add one more column here, and then I want to use, for example, image column. So you can provide some text as image. And I want to use a screen element. I want to use a screen element as image. So you can use that here. I'm using the screen element as image. And we need to maintain binding with price column because I'm applying condition on price. I'm applying condition on price, so try to maintain binding with price column here. Then then what you can do is you can use one formatter function by putting some comma here. Just put comma and just write function. So that is going to be a formatter function here. And you can put some flower brackets. Within this flower bracket, you can write some piece of code. There's a flower bracket. So within that flower brackets, you can write some coding with some if-else condition. So if, for example, price value is greater than equal to 500, I want to return something like some image like success.gif, else we can return something like error.gif. So two icons I want to use, one with success for green color, another as error, that is for red color. So this is how you can apply a formatter function. But what you need to do, you need to make sure that you are returning two different images based on if-else condition here. And you also need to make sure that these two images are imported into web content folder. So let me copy those images. So I'm just copying some images here. You can see error.gif file, that is a red color icon, and there is a success.gif file, that is a green color icon. So let us copy these two things and paste it in some web content folder. So we'll get success and error.gif, and these images will be displayed based on condition because of formatter function. So observe here, you can test it now. There is some syntax problem. Let me check what is the problem here. Price value greater than equal to 500. We are returning some success.gif. Else we are returning error.gif. So let me check. So there is some problem. Let me rectify that. Okay, so you can see here, we are using an image. But for image, value is not the property. I told you already in the previous classes, I told you whenever we use image, we have to use src property. So you have to change it here, src. That is a property of image. So that might be the problem. So let me save it, refresh. So now we got that output. Let us refresh here in the external browser, and you can see something like we are getting two different images based on condition. If you closely observe this output, price less than 500, we got red color icon. Price greater than 500, we got something like green color icon. So that is how you can display images inside a table. by applying formatter function. So we are able to succeed now. Similarly, I want to use a checkbox here. I want to create one checkbox column by using a formatter function. So to do that, so let us go with the checkbox. So you can copy this and you can add one more column. We are adding one more column, and you can see this is just for check status here. And if I want to use a checkbox, then you have to use the screen element as checkbox. And for checkbox, the property is checked property here. We are using screen element checkbox, and the property is checked property, and you have to maintain binding with price column because I want to apply condition on price. So now if you want to use a formatter function, just use comma here, function some p value, that is price value, and here you can apply some formatter function. If for example price value greater than equal to 500, I want to return true value. That means checkbox will be selected. If I return true, that means checkbox will be selected. Else I want to return false, so checkbox will be deselected. Checkbox will be deselected. So this is a formatter function we are applying to display checkbox status by using checkbox screen element with checked property. Checkbox contains checked property here for binding. Image contains src property for binding. Text view contains text property for binding. Text field contains value property for binding. So based on the screen element, property should change. So let us test it now. Let me refresh the screen, and in external browser I'm trying to refresh, and we are able to get a checkbox. You can see that here. So you can see price greater than 500 checkbox is selected. Less than 500 checkbox is not selected. Checkbox is not selected. So that is how you can display checkbox with selection or deselection. Now I want to add one more column which will display rating indicator. I want to display one more column in a table which will display the rating indicator with 2 star if it is price is greater than 500. Else I want to display rating as 4 star. I want to display rating 2 star, 4 star depending upon the price condition. So let us try that. So I'm adding one more column here. Just observe how I'm making the changes. I'm trying to copy that price column, and I want to use this for rating value. So you can use something like rating column. And if you are using a rating, then you have to change the class name as rating indicator. That's a class. Rating indicator is a class here. And that is the screen element I am trying to use. That's the screen element I am trying to use. And here we can maintain binding with value property. For rating indicator, we use value property, so don't change it. For rating indicator, we can use value property for binding, and I want to apply formatter function, so you can use function, some p-value, put flower brackets, within that flower brackets, write some if-else condition here. So this is what you need to do now. If price value is greater than or equal to 500, I want to return the value with, for example, 2 star. I'm returning the value as 2 star here. If price value is less than 500, then I want to return the rating of that record with 4 star here. So depending upon the price, we are returning value 2, we are returning value 4 by using a formatter function. So let me save it and let us refresh here. So now it is displayed. Let me test it in external browser, and you can see we are able to get that required output. And if you closely observe, we are able to get that required output here. So price less than 500, we are getting some 4 star rating here. We are getting 4 star rating. And price greater than 500, we are getting some 2 star rating here. You can see the difference. So that is how you can display rating based on some condition by using a formatter function. So not only that, I want to use a progress indicator. Not only rating, we can also add a progress indicator inside a table column. So let me show that here. I want to use progress with 80% if price is greater than or equal to 500. Else I want to display progress with 20%. So let me try that. I'm going to the coding part and just try to add one more column here. Try to copy that, add one more column. Just paste that. Now I want to use this for progress, so you can change the column name as progress. And if you want to display progress indicator, then you have to use a screen element with class name as progress indicator. That's a class name. Progress indicator, there's a class name for progress indicator screen element. And for progress indicator, we have a property that is percent value. We have to use a property that is percent value. And we are maintaining binding with price column, and I want to apply formatter function. So you can use function. Function is a keyword. You can use a function. That function is a keyword, and I'm using price value with some flower brackets. Within that, you can put some if condition here. So this is how you can implement some code. So if price is greater than or equal to 500, then you can return, for example, 80%. Price value greater than 500, I am returning 80% here. Just to make you understand, I am returning that 80%, else I want to return something like 20% here. So that is how you can apply formatter function. So let us test it. Percent value so V should be uppercase. V should be uppercase. Let me refresh now. So you can see now there is a column which is showing the progress indicator, and we are able to get the output, but I need to change the label. We can change that display label later, but you can see the difference now. So we are able to get that progress indicator. You can see the difference here. So price less than 500, we are getting some status up to this one. We can change the display value, don't worry about display value, but you can see if the price is greater than 500, we are able to get a different status here. You can see the difference in the progress. So the first category belongs to 20%, the second category belongs to 80% based on the price. If you want, you can change that 0% to 20, 0% to 80, that you can try, but this is how we can display progress indicator in a table column. So not only this, for example, I want to display a button. I want to display button for airline column. I want to display button for airline column in this table. So what you need to do? So you can just copy that. You can just copy one of the syntax for column. And you can paste somewhere here. And I want to display airline. And I want to display airline column with a button. So you try to use the class name as button. And for button, the property is text. So you can use that. For button, the property is text. So you can use that for binding. And I'm expecting airline. I'm expecting airline with button, so you can provide that column name as airline. So that is for binding. That is for binding. So button screen element, text is a property, and we are going to display airline values under button text. So don't worry about how to perform actions. We are going to perform actions in the coming classes. We are going to perform actions in the coming classes. At present, we are just trying to display the button for every record with airline value. So let us refresh here. So now you can see when you scroll right, you're getting some button, and button contains airline values. So you can see that. So if you closely observe this, we are getting some buttons And for buttons, on top of button, it is displaying the airline value. We are displaying button. On top of button, we are displaying the text with airline. Some Delta Airlines, Japan Airlines. So those things are coming because of data binding. Those records are coming just because of data binding. So that is how you can display all these things. So let me copy the code. So for your reference, so that's a code. Now, not only that, say for example, I want to bring the data to a drop down by consuming OData ABAP service. I want to bring the data to drop down by consuming OData ABAP service. So how to do that? Displaying records in drop down by consuming OData ABAP service. So let us try this. So if you want to display records in drop down by consuming OData ABAP service, you need to follow certain procedure. So in the last class and today's class, we are trying to display the records coming from backend into a table. We are displaying the records coming from backend by consuming OData service into a table. But now I want to display some record values in drop-down box by consuming OData ABAP service. So what you can do now? So step 1, you have to create model object by consuming OData ABAP service. You have to create model object by consuming OData ABAP service. I told you how to create a model object, how to consume OData service. The same code you can use it. And step 2, we can create object for data binding. We have to create object for drop-down box. We have to create object for drop-down box. And step 3, you have to create object for list item. You have to create object for list item and maintain data binding with OData ABAP service field. Maintain data binding with OData ABAP service field. That is step 3. Step 4, you have to set the model to drop-down box because I want to display records in drop-down box. You have to set the model to drop-down box because I want to display records in drop-down box. In the last class, we have set the model to table because we are expecting records in table. So step 5, Step 5, bind items. Bind items with item object, list item object, and entity set of OData service. You have to bind items with list item object and entity set of OData ABAP service. And the last step, step 6, place drop-down box on content. You can place drop-down box on content. So that is a very basic procedure. In the previous examples, we were using drop-down box with static values. In our previous classes, I was explaining a drop-down box with static values, but in today's class, we are getting the drop-down box values from backend system by consuming OData service. I already have explained drop-down box, but that is with static values. Now we are getting the data from backend. So you can see here, there is a project here that is Z users project. There is a project that is Z users project, and it contains some entity type, entity set, and entity type contains some fields. So what I want to do is I want to display email ID values in drop-down box. Email ID values which is coming from backend via OData service, I want to display in drop-down box. So first of all, you need to consume this OData service. First, you need to consume this OData ABAP service. So let me copy that service URL. So according to step 1, you can create a model object. You can create some model object that is equal to, you can use new sap.ui.model. sap.ui.model.odata.odata model. So already I've explained in the last class. And for this OData model, we have to provide the service URL. This is our service URL. This is our service URL, and we are trying to use Z users project service. Z users project service. And as I told you, you can use true or false for whether you want to use XML format or JSON format. Gateway server will respond in JSON or XML based on true or false indicator here. Gateway server will transfer the data internally based on XML or JSON if you use true or false. So similarly, you can provide some user ID, user D19 I'm using, and some password SAP UI123. So this is how we are trying to provide all the credentials by consuming OData ABAP service. In the last class also we have done this, but today we are trying to consume OData service to display the values in drop-down box. So according to step 1, we have created a model object by consuming OData service. So step 1 is completed now. Step 1, we have created model object by consuming OData ABAP service. So step 2, you have to create object for drop-down box. Step 2, we have to create object for drop down box. So that we'll do it later. Dynamic user ID credentials, that we'll discuss later. Don't worry much about that. Concentrate on the main topic. So we can create object for drop down box, and as I told you, you can use like var drop down box object equal to new sap dot ui dot commons dot, you can use some drop down box, drop down box. So that's it, very simple. We are creating object for drop down box. Now according to step 3, we have to create object for list item. According to step 3, we have to create object for list item, and we need to maintain data binding with OData ABAP service field. So how to do that? You can use var something like list item object equal to new sap dot ui dot core dot list item, that is a class. And for list item, we need to maintain data binding. For list item, we need to maintain data binding. You can use text along with key. And I want to maintain data binding with email ID field. I want to maintain data binding with email ID column of our entity type because I'm expecting email values under a drop-down box. I'm expecting email ID values in a drop-down box via OData service. So you have to maintain data binding with that here. So data binding can also be done by putting double quotes here, and within flower brackets, you can provide that field name. And if you want, you can also use key option, that is put double quotes, put flower brackets. In that, you can provide your field name. So this is what? This is the line that is maintaining a data binding with a text and key property. I'm making sure that we are expecting email ID values under drop down. So we are maintaining binding with email ID column of our OData ABAP service. So that is what you need to do here. Double quotes, flower brackets, column name. So that is also a data binding. Data binding can also be done using below syntax. Property colon, you use property name colon double quotes, and within the double quotes put flower bracket, then provide OData service field. So this is also considered as data binding. This is also considered as data binding. So that's the syntax we are using here. And now the next step. Next step is we have to set the model to drop-down box. We have to set the model to drop-down box. So how to do that? Very simple. You can use drop-down box object dot set model, and you can set your model object here. We are going to display the records in drop-down box, so you have to use model binding with drop-down box. I want to display records in drop-down box, so you have to set the model to drop-down box. And next step, bind items with list item and entity set of OData service. Bind items with list item and entity set of OData web service. So to do that, you can use drop-down object. Dot, you can use bind methods, bind items. There is a method you can see, bind items. So that's a method you can use. Bind items, and I can use our entity set. Our entity set is user set in OData service. User set is our entity set in OData service, so you can use that here, user set, comma, you have to provide list item object here. Entity set along with list item object. So we are binding the items with list item, and list items will get the records from the user set as entity set. List items will bring the record values from the user set, that is nothing but an entity set. And then last step, you can place drop-down box on content. You can use drop-down box on content. So let us test it now. Let us refresh. If there is any problem, let me rectify here. You can use playset. Let me refresh. So there is some syntax error. Let me rectify through Internet Explorer. There is a syntax error. Let me rectify with that. So expected bracket in line number 236. Expected bracket in line number 236. So let me try that. This is 236. Okay, what you do is, these are the properties, so put it in flower brackets. These are the properties, so you have to put it in flower brackets. Text key, they are the properties, so put it in flower brackets. So let us test it now. So let me copy that. Let me copy this external URL. Let me copy that URL into external browser. It is not able to fetch. Let me refresh again. Content 2. Let me try it on content 2. Okay, still there seems to be some syntax error. Let me rectify that. There is a syntax error still. Object expected in line number 227. So let me check that in the coding part, 227. Okay, you can see there is a problem. So O data model, D is uppercase. O data model, D should be uppercase. There's a mistake, so let me change it. O data model, O is uppercase, D is uppercase, M is uppercase. O data model, that's a class name. So at least this time, let me refresh now. I think server is not responding. Okay, let me restart this. Okay, first let me check whether that Eclipse is not responding first. So this OData service, let me check whether it is pulling the data or not. So there is a problem with OData service. It is not executing, it is hanging. You can see there is a problem with our connection. Gateways, okay, let me log in. There is a problem with gateway server. It is trying to fetch the data, but server is not responding, so it is hanging. So that might be the problem. Okay, don't worry, we'll discuss this drop-down box in tomorrow's class. If you have any doubts, you can ask me now. Drop-down box we'll discuss in tomorrow's class. I'll show it practically. Procedure-wise, coding-wise, there is no change. Procedure-wise, coding-wise, there is no change. The only thing is server is not responding immediately. So that's the reason why our Eclipse is unable to load that output. Okay. Yeah, what's your doubt?
Vijay Adilakshmi here.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, you can see here, don't leave, don't leave. Let me continue this session. Now you can see here, we are able to get the values in a drop-down box, and these values are nothing but email ID values here. There is a table, and table contains, below the table, there is a drop-down, and in that drop-down, we are able to get this list of email IDs. So you can also test it in external browser. You can test it in external browser. At the bottom of your table, there is a drop down, and drop down is displaying your list of email IDs here. You can see that. So you can see surya@gmail.com, rahul@ca.com, vijay@ca.com. So these are the values that are coming from our OData service here. So similarly, I want to display these first name values in radio button group. We are able to get the values in drop down. Similarly, I want to display the values in a radio button group. So how to do that? So first let me write the procedure. Displaying records. Displaying records in radio button group by consuming OData ABAP service. So let me explain this also. Displaying records in radio button group by consuming OData ABAP service. In the previous classes, we are able to display the static values in radio button group. We are able to display static values in radio button group. Now I want to display the values coming from OData ABAP service from backend system. So you have to go with step one. Step one, you have to create a model object by consuming OData ABAP service. And if it is already done, you need not do this again. If model object is already created, then ignore this step. Create model object by consuming OData ABAP service. Create model object by consuming OData ABAP service here. And if model object is already created, you can ignore this step. You can use the same model object if you are using the same service. And step two, what you need to do is you have to create an object for radio button group. Create object for radio button group. That is step two. Step three, create object for something like item, and maintain data binding with OData ABAP service field. Create object for item and maintain data binding with OData ABAP service field. After that, step 4, set model to radio button group. You can set the model to radio button group, that is step 4. And step 5, you have to bind items with item object and entity set of OData service. You can bind items with item object and entity set of OData service. Then last step, step 6, place radio button group on content. That's it. Place radio button group on content. It's almost same like your drop down box. Procedure is almost same like your drop down box, which we have done in the previous case. So let me complete these 6 steps for radio button group. So you can see already model object is available. We are consuming the OData ABAP service here. Already model object is available by consuming an OData service here. So you need not create model object if you are using same service and again. I'm using the same service, so you can use the same model object here without creating again and again. So directly I can go to step 2, that is creating object for radio button group. I'm going to directly step 2 because model object is already available here. So let us create object for radio button group, that is new sap.ui.commons.radio button group. Radio button group. That's it. Step 2, create object for radio button group. That is done. And step 3, create object for item and maintain data binding. This is very important. Otherwise, we can't display the data on the screen. Create object for item and maintain data binding with our OData ABAP service field. So to do that, you can use var item object equal to new sap.ui.commons.item. And for this, you have to use data binding with some text and key properties. If you want to maintain data binding, put double quotes. Within double quotes, put flower brackets, and within flower brackets, you can provide your OData service field. You have to provide OData service field. So in my case, I want to display first name values coming from OData service. I want to display first name values which is coming from OData service here. First name is one of the field in entity type. So I want to use that first name values in the front end radio button group. So you can provide that here. First name, that's a field. And you can also use key. Key also you can use same, or you can also use different one. That doesn't matter, but I'm using the same field for text and key. It can be different, but I'm using same for text and key to avoid confusion. So that is nothing but creating item object and maintaining data binding. Maintaining data binding and maintaining data binding with OData service field here. So please remember, we are not using static values. The values will come from OData service from backend system. Now the fourth step, set the model to radio button group. Set the model to radio button group. So it's very simple. You can use radio button group object dot set model, and you can set that model object here. You can set that model object. And next step, bind items with item object and entity set of OData service. Bind items with item object and entity set of OData ABAP service. So very simple, radio button group object dot bind items. Bind items, and you can provide something like in double quotes slash user set. User set is our entity set. Don't forget that. User set is our entity set of our OData service. So that you have to use it in the front end. And not only this entity set, you have to assign your item object by using comma here. Bind items with entity set along with your item object. And at last, you can use radio button group object dot place at. Radio button group object dot place at, and you can place it on content here. That's it. I'm using it on content 3. So that's a very simple procedure. Radio button group object dot place at content 3. So content 3 is already available. So I'm placing it on content 3. So let me try. Let me refresh here. So let me test it in external browser. If there is any problem, we'll rectify. So it is displaying drop-down values, but radio button group values are not displayed. Let me check what is the problem here. Sorry, this is sapui.core. I have used commons, but you have to use sap.ui.core. For item, item is a class coming from sap.ui.core. So let me refresh now. So this time we got the values, we got the drop-down values here with first name values coming from OData service. So you can see these are the drop-down values, but these are the radio button group values. And as I told you, you can place these radio button group values in 2 columns or 3 columns. That all depends on your choice. So I want to place it in 2 columns, so you can use radio button group with property as columns. Let me try with something like 2. Let me refresh. So it is taking 1 to just taking 1. So let me try columns. So now you can see we are able to get drop down values, and you can see radio button group values are available in 2 columns here. This is what I'm expecting, column 1, column 2 here. But don't forget, these values are coming because of our OData ABAP service here. We are referring this service in the front end, and because of that, we are able to get these values. Table values, drop-down values, radio button group values. So what I'll do is, first try these 3 things. Getting the data to table, try that first. And then bring the data to drop-down, bring the data to radio button group. And in tomorrow's class, first 30 minutes, I'll clarify your doubts. After that, I'll continue with the session. In tomorrow's class, first 20 minutes, I'll clarify your doubts, because you may get several doubts. Some may not get the output. So I'll clarify all your doubts in the beginning of tomorrow's class. After that, I'll start the session. Okay?